I just landed in Somalia.
That was intense.
But what do you think of when I say that? Do you think of war, danger, sanctions, and famine? Or do you think of fresh fish, kind people, rich culture, and detailed history? Right now, I'm on my way to Mogadishu. Some people call it the most dangerous capital in the world, but I call it a vacation. Now, while I would be lying if I didn't say that Somalia is impacted by many human rights issues, a variety of conflicts, and serious healthcare problems, there is another side to Somalia, specifically that of Mogadishu. I'm excited to take you with me. Let's go to Mogadishu. But first, hijab. Somalia is one of a few countries that as women we need to dress modestly. Now, while the hijab is only mandatory in Iran and Afghanistan and in schools in Gaza for young girls, it is not legally mandated in Somalia, but it is part of the culture to dress modestly, so we are doing so. I cannot. We are about to board a flight to Mogadishu from Addis Ababa. In 2017, I went to Somaliland. Although Somalia recognizes Somaliland as a part of its country, they have their own government and consider themselves an unrecognized country in Africa. They declared independence in 1991, and it has stayed somewhat solidly democratic for the past 30 years. But no other country has ever recognized its sovereign identity. But now I am finally going to Mogadishu. For a long time, thought to be the most dangerous capital city in the entire world.
We ordered our flight to Mogadishu. Hijab's ready.
Generally, when I wear a hijab, I put my hair in a braid, but I did not do that earlier, so I need to braid really quickly while we're on the plane before we get there. So why is Mogadishu considered to be so dangerous? As a general theme, civil unrest and political tension. It's very unpredictable, particularly in Mogadishu. There has also long been an issue with terrorism in Somalia, particularly by the group Al-Shabaab, which is an ally to Al-Qaeda, but different. These are sadly some of the recent terror attacks that have happened in the last couple of years, and while they are a lot less than they used to be, they still exist. And finally, kidnap. As a Western person, it is possible that you might be kidnapped and held for ransom. Another reason why we are wearing hijab and fully dressing modestly while we're here. The first thing I see as we land are World Food Project planes. This is run by the United Nations and usually brings aid to different countries who need it. Mogadishu's dangerous reputation may be in part due to the movie Black Hawk Down, a very well-known movie reenactment of the 17-hour Battle of Mogadishu. This took place on October 3rd, 1993, and there is a lot more of a backstory to what actually happened. Now, while there was a civil war happening at the time, due to various clashings of clans and specifically a militiaman Adid, the US decided to do what we do best and poke our nose in everyone else's business. Now, there was a famine going on in Somalia at this time, and the US went in with the UN to provide humanitarian aid efforts. At first, this was extremely well received, but unfortunately, the US sends in really young, generally just special forces who are specifically trained in combat and not necessarily how to associate with people. And sometimes these people lack humanity. While it began with UN-US aid, it turned into missions going after Adid, because supposedly about 80% of the supplies were actually hijacked by militias, and in the crossfire, hurting and killing many innocent civilians. And this led to many Somalis hating the US soldiers. Some even turned against the US just to spite them, because of how horribly they were being treated by these US soldiers. So while the US Army was doing a raid and lost a Black Hawk helicopter, some Somalis were happy. US soldiers were dragged through the streets, there were hostages taken, and it was an incredibly insane 2 days. It's important to note that while 19 US soldiers were lost and 100 were injured, hundreds of Somalis were killed and thousands injured, altering the future of Somalia still today. Now, I don't know what I thought this airport was going to be like, but I definitely didn't think it was going to be this modern, and maybe that's bad that I'm saying that, but I was under the impression that Somalia was not going to be so technologically advanced. And again, I'm totally wrong for saying that, but I'm just being honest here, that was my perception when I first came. Okay, now as much as I would love to say, oh, I went here without a guide, I don't have security, that is not legally allowed, and anyone who pretends like they did is lying to you. In order to get a tourist visa, you must have a guide and hire Mogadishu police security, who we actually don't have in our car yet, but as you can see, these windows are blacked out. This is our first checkpoint before we are getting to our hotel, so we can drop off our stuff and start exploring Mogadishu. And yes, that is what you think it is. This is where we are staying. I actually don't even know the actual name of this hotel, but we are basically on a compound here, so it feels extremely safe. And look at that, I think it's time for us to eat. Dates are indigenous to Somalia, and as the country has struggled with food insecurity, date farming has become huge and essential. Now this is Is Bandais. Probably pronouncing that wrong.
What do you think? It's like orange, but not sweet, but it's good. Refreshing.
Also known as ambarella, this is supposedly only found in 17 countries. If you didn't know, Somalia is known for its fish and its spaghetti. Fish because of the sea that it sits on, and spaghetti due to Italian colonization. We will definitely talk about that more in a few minutes. Welcome to our hotel room. This is included in the price of our tour because we are required to be on the tour. So I can't quite tell you what the cost of the room is by itself, but it's clean and simple and perfect for what we need. I guess there's only mini bottles of water in Somalia, so they gave us like 10 little bottles of water because it is surprisingly very, very hot right now. We have made it to Mogadishu in Somalia. We're going to go out on a boat now, and we're going to go to Lido Beach. Watch go swimming in the ocean, but we need to wear long garments to do so because we have to remain modest. So we're going to wear something on our head and wear something like this. I was going to change, but since we're swimming, I'm going to keep on my ugliest abaya outfit. I step outside and I see these cute goats. And finally, our policeman has arrived. He's sitting in the back of our truck and he does have a weapon. Part of me wonders if this is drawing more attention to us, but I'm going to trust the process because there are quite a lot of checkpoints and he definitely helps us get through them. Now, let's talk about something interesting with these bajaj, also known as tuk-tuks in other parts of the world. As you can see, they are different colors. One is blue and red, and the other is red and yellow. However, you will only see one grouping of these on the road every day, because every other day they switch off to allow other drivers to drive. This is because there are 150,000 bajaj in Mogadishu. That is way too many, and they needed to limit the amount of traffic that there is. Obviously, this is not great for the bajaj drivers, but at least everybody still eats, right? Now, supposedly, the minimum salary is $300 per month. US dollars is the currency that is used here, and there is an EVC system for sending money. There's a number that you type into your phone and you say how much you want to send, and everything is completely digital. And this has been here long before cryptocurrency ever existed. In driving around, you can see remnants of Al-Shabaab and other terrorist attacks, fires, or buildings that have been blown up. In fact, I am arriving at Lido Beach, and this was the site of a very horrible terror attack in August 2024. My heart goes out to all of the victims and, of course, their families. Upon arrival, there are a bunch of dogs just laying here. I was told that locals don't really like dogs, but they generally leave them alone. Now, we are here because we're going out on a boat. That's right, we're going out on a boat in Somalia. Now, many people associate Somalis with piracy, but there is so much more to this story than that. Now, while you may have heard many stories about Somali pirates taking people hostage, in reality, Somali pirates have attacked less than 1% of traffic in Somalia. So where did this idea of Somali pirates come from, and what is the reality today? The reality is that this began 200 years ago by Barbary pirates. People try to compare Somali piracy with Barbary piracy, but this is just not the same thing. According to the U.S. Naval Institute, pirates off Somalia have not hijacked any single U.S. flagged ship since 1800. And across the entire span of Somali pirate activity, there has only been one U.S. citizen that's been held captive for a few days. There has never been any ransom that's ever been paid for an American citizen to any Somali pirate. And so why do people always say that Somalis are pirates? Well, probably bigotry and racism. Most Somalis believe that these so-called Somali pirates have simply been protecting their waters. That Somali pirates are not really pirates at all, but instead are soldiers defending their local fishing grounds from foreign trawlers. Anyways, we enjoyed ourselves in the water and did not come into contact with any pirates. Now, while I thought this was going to be a very quick ride home, something happened on the way that I could not have expected. Now we've been in traffic for like 30 minutes because the president is apparently passing, but we've just been sitting here. So here I am just looking out the window, seeing all of these tuk-tuk go by and watching this guy cook, but we literally cannot go anywhere. Luckily, we finally got out of that, and it's time to get some papaya, because it is papaya season right now, and I'm so excited for this. Ajus is negotiating. All ready for iftar? Wait, I may have forgotten to mention that it's Ramadan right now. Even though we haven't been fasting. There are many different cultural influences on Somali food, and here are some of the appetizers that we're having tonight. But just wait for the main course. This is samosa. I'm gonna put some spicy sauce on it. This is Somali fish. It is fried and there is some rice on the side. Now I am definitely using the spicy sauce. It is so yummy.
This is bajio. It is a red soybean ball.
It's interesting because this reminded me of falafel. Okay, now I bet you've never seen this before. Look at this banana with spaghetti and fish. This is extremely common to eat banana with everything in Somalia alongside hot sauce. And now we're having that papaya from earlier. Ooh, it is so good. Dinner is over and now it's time to go out on the town.
Let's explore Mogadishu.
Our first stop is to try some Somali sweets. It was pretty cool. They gave us a few samples, but I could not believe that all of the prices are in US dollars. So far, I haven't even seen Somali currency. This one is kind of like a macaroon made with coconut.
We have some Somali tea.
Someone called this kunefe, but it's not kunefe. I'm not really sure what it was. Anyway, now we are definitely really full. And the scariest thing that we need to do in Somalia is cross the road, because there are a lot of cars.
Now we're just waiting on an Uber because they have Uber in Mogadishu.
I didn't realize that Ajus was actually joking when he said Uber. There's no Uber in Mogadishu. This is our Uber. I think he has a few phone numbers up his sleeve, but basically you just jump in one of these tuk-tuks and that's your Uber. I don't know if you see all of these guys carrying pretty big guns, but somehow I've just gotten used to this and I feel totally safe. All right, now negotiation is always an important part of jumping in a car. So we're just trying to negotiate the right price, and generally it's about $1 to get from one place in Mogadishu to a place that's like 5 or 10 minutes away. Okay, let's say 5 to 10 minutes without traffic because there is quite a lot of traffic here at night. Remember how I told you that everything is digital? Well, these are the numbers that you type into your phone and you send that dollar to get your ride. Somalia is not necessarily an incredibly ethnically diverse country. There are a few other ethnic groups that live in Somalia. Today we are walking through the Yemeni Somali quarter. For centuries, Yemenis have been settling in Mogadishu and Somalia. Some people have intermarried and some people haven't. Well, today we are eating some popcorn and hanging out with some Yemeni Somalis. Or is it Somali Yemenis? All I know is that this is very tasty. And then in true Yemeni fashion, we're given some coffee.
There's ginger in the coffee.
We ended up taking lots of photos with people and FaceTiming some people's family members. And now we're off, trying to get to Hamir Market. We stopped by to get some water at the supermarket, and this is how you use M-Pass. Pretty cool. Hamir Market was built in 1928. However, this escalator is only 2 years old. So I was told that some people had never seen an escalator before this, and a lot of the women kind of get scared and were screaming and playing around on the escalator. This is a little bit of a better view from above. Okay, but let's head in more to the market where things are crazy. Because it is Ramadan, people are just out buying so many clothes for their families and for their friends. Although it feels like we kind of blend in, because there are a good number of Arabs here. We still had a few people coming up to us and asking us where we were from. So you know my response to that is always Turkey. It took quite a long time to get down on the escalator. When we stepped outside, I had to look, and it's 82 degrees right now, which is actually kind of perfect. Now we're looking for a tuk-tuk to get back, and I just said we need to find one that's comfortable and that there's not a speaker that pushes forward the seat. So surprisingly, this actually took us quite a while. Somalis love to blast their music, and that makes the night a whole lot more fun.
So going out tonight in Mogadishu was a lot of fun. It was completely different than I expected it to be. I'm not sure exactly what I expected, but it was very built up. It felt super modern. There was a lot going on. But one thing in particular that stuck out to me was that the escalator was put in 2 years ago, so people didn't know how to use it and people were scared to get on it, and I thought that was very cute.
Good morning from Mogadishu. Let's do a quick get ready with me. Now, this is not a traditional abaya, but I am trying to have a little bit of fashion while I'm here, so I put on this green dress, and then I take this cape to cover my arms because they cannot be bare. I'm going for a modest look today. Now, of course, you know what comes next. I need to put on my hijab. So I'm taking a black scarf today, even though it's pretty hot out. But I like this look until I realized that it's literally 90 degrees. So I put on my black abaya, which is a little bit more breathable. And I think that this is the look for today. All dressed and ready to go, but actually skipping breakfast before we go to this next place.
Heading to the fish market. This could potentially be a little bit distressing for people who do not like to see dead fish and large
Ajus is speaking to different security people, trying to make sure that the coast is clear. And we do have our security officer here with us today, mainly to get through checkpoints and just make sure that things go smoothly. But like I said, if you don't like seeing dead fish, then make sure you skip this next chapter because it is a fish market and it's a little bit bloody. I'm giving you fair warning now. Now, one of the cool things about heading to the fish market is that you start seeing people on motorbikes with fish on their bikes with them. And this was just a sign that we are getting closer and closer, and I thought it was super cool because everyone really does just go to the fish market and pick up their fish and then go home and make dinner. And then something a little bit crazy happened. A policeman yelled at us and cocked his gun. I kind of run away because I'm like, why would this be about me? But he starts telling us to stop, and then Aju starts yelling at him, and we're basically just waiting around, waiting for something to change, waiting for something to happen. And then he was threatening our security, saying that we had to pay him $100, basically trying to bribe us. This is him. Anyways, Aju's called his superior, and he got in trouble, so we could continue on. Because we are literally just existing, and Somalia does not stand for corruption of police officers. But we are actually walking to an iconic place in Somalia. This is the lighthouse of Mogadishu. Now, while yes, it was built by the Italians during the colonial period, it is still a landmark building in Mogadishu that has sadly been somewhat reduced to ruins during the war. And in May 2023, it actually collapsed and killed a few people. But actually standing on this beach is an iconic space in itself. This is where all of the fish come in from the ocean.
We are standing here watching all of the fishermen pull the fish out of the water, and we were told that they are paid 50 cents for each fish that they catch, and then they're sold for about $1, which is wild.
Let me just correct myself right there. It is 50 cents per kilo and sold for $1 per kilo. Due to the drought in other parts of the country, this has become a viable source of income for many people in Somalia. Now, while for us, seeing these huge animals be pulled out of the water, it can be a bit distressing. For example, they are pulling out sharks and swordfish and fish that I wouldn't necessarily eat, specifically because of their important contributions to the ecosystems that they live in. But of course, I'm going to remind myself that I have to respect this culture of eating these specific fish. And I do eat tuna, I do eat other fish, so it's a little bit hypocritical on my part, but at the same time, it is really interesting to watch this take place. I mean, you see some of these guys carrying 2, 3, 4 fish at a time, but everyone seems to be having a great time, even though it is really, really hot out here. After a bit of watching, it's now our cue to actually go to the fish market. We're hoping that we're not going to be stopped again, but so far, everything seems pretty good. Only about a 5-minute walk from here to the actual place where the fish are sold. This woman wanted to take a photo with us, and we had a really lovely conversation. And then as I walk up to the fish market, I see all of these men gathering in a circle. I'm told that the fish here go up for auction. So people bet what they think it's worth, and then the highest bidder will win. Honestly, it could not have prepared me for what I was about to see. It was definitely a bit intense. But again, why am I feeling this way about fish when I eat fish? Anyway, this is your last chance before things get gruesome. I did know what I was walking into when I came to the fish market, but I wasn't really ready for the smells, I guess.
Very good, yeah.
A lot of Somalis speak English, so everybody was super helpful in telling us what different fish were, and it was really interesting to see this in action. But there is a lot of blood, and pretty much all fish markets smell very, very bad. So I think this one just being in a confined space and it being really, really hot outside just made it a little bit worse. All right, after we had walked through, at some point we're just like, okay, we need to get out of here. We are feeling a bit sick from the smell. And we see a way out, so now is our time.
That was intense.
Now out here, they are selling different types of oils. So there's shark oil and turtle oil. These are used for cooking or rubbing on the body. Now the turtle oil is the dark one, and that one is $6, but the shark oil is $20. And that's because it holds an important purpose in Somali culture.
On the other hand, they're saying during the honeymoon, it's giving you more strong than normal way.
Did you catch that? Well, basically they think that it's Viagra, natural Viagra. And these are little bits of turtle that you can eat. Obviously, I don't eat animals like this, so I didn't have any. And at this point, we get to see some actual Somali money, which is quite devalued, so people don't use it in Mogadishu. Now, let's go take a walk through the old quarter. This is an older part of Mogadishu, and you can see some really nice details.
My hijab went like this, and people started coming up to me saying, you need to put your hijab on.
That was startling, but I wanted to leave it in because it did happen, and some people in the comments of my shorts had said maybe they were just trying to let you know. And yes, maybe that's the case, but at the same time, I do want to put an emphasis on how important it is in Somali culture to be covered and modest. Wow, okay, it was wonderful walking through the old quarter, but it is incredibly hot here. So I'm happy to be back in the car, and I took off my hijab just while we're in the car. And doing some Somali karaoke. Now, I'm not the best at it, but this is a lot of fun to see that they also have a karaoke culture in Somalia. For some reason, dinner was extra good tonight. I really loved the fish.
I'm so tired today. Going down for breakfast.
We had some breakfast, and it was just mainly fruit because we're not really eating eggs that often when we travel. And wow, this banana is so good. And the watermelon too. Now today we are visiting somewhere that was built during the colonial period. While I do not condone this, it is a period of time that happened in this country, and this is a monument here.
Now I'm at the Mogadishu Cathedral. This was built in 1928 by Italian colonialists, and it was destroyed in 2008 during the Civil War. But you can see the intricate details, and it was really grand at one point.
So the Italians built this church in 1928, and it was destroyed by Al-Shabaab in 2008. Well, let's talk about a little bit of what happened in between that time. In 1961, Somalia got their independence. In 1979, Russia came for protection during the Ethiopian War. In 1991, Italy finally left, and that is at the point that the Civil War started. Now, the United States, Turkey, and Ghana all have bases in Somalia. But before all of that, and before the Italians came in 1928, there were actually Arabs here. But now, Somalia is kind of in three different sections: the Mogadishu area, Somaliland, and Puntland. Somalia does not consider Somaliland or Puntland to be independent, but Somaliland was proclaimed in 1991 and Puntland was established as a federal state in 1998. Somaliland is more of an independent state than Puntland, you could say. But again, that depends who you're speaking to. I think this church just kind of shows a place and time for Somalia and to show how far Somalia has come. Now, as we are leaving, I saw something a little interesting. I couldn't quite make it out at the time, but it seems like a pile of bones. Tell me what you think. I could only assume that this is a sheep or somebody was eating it. No one is actually supposed to be back here. I found that out later on. So it was odd to me that there were a pile of bones back here. Anyways, I'm going to try to erase that from my brain.
Last lunch in Mogadishu. Sad.
Let's say the only good thing that the Italians left behind is spaghetti. We are actually getting some dates to go because these are so yummy.
It's time to leave Somalia. Peace out. It's been a good trip. Really changed my mind on everything that I had preconceived ideas about Somalia. Not necessarily that they were bad, but just totally different. Maybe I'll come back. We'll see.
If you want to go to Somalia, I highly recommend Ajus. He runs a company that brings tourists to Somalia, and he was just a wonderful host. And there is only one negative thing that I would like to bring up and discuss about Somalia that I have not during this trip, because it has been such a positive and wonderful trip. It's been hard to discuss this, but female genital mutilation is an issue in Somalia. In fact, there is proof that over 95% of all women suffer from this over their lifetime in Somalia. This is essentially the act of female circumcision, and this is the partial or total removal of external female genitalia for non-medical reasons. It is painful, it is not done with anesthetic, it is traumatic and can cause serious medical issues. I wanted to bring attention to this because there are a lot of amazing Somali women who are trying to change this in their own country, bringing laws, but this is not something that will happen overnight. And I also brought this up because I do feel like this is one of the most negative things that people like to bring up when we talk about Somalia, and it is essential that we keep discussing it. But this horrible practice can exist at the same time that Somalia is a wonderful country. We've now arrived at the airport and we are looking for a magnet, but this is definitely the most bizarre gift shop I've ever seen at an airport before. This zone is heavily militarized, so we've already gone through 4 different checkpoints to get to this point. But there are so many shark teeth, so many turtle shells. Obviously, this is a country where nothing goes to waste, but I just thought this was such an interesting place to stumble into while we were just looking for a magnet. And that's it. Our flight is here. It's time to fly to Nairobi. And with that, we are taking off the hijab as we fly away from Somalia. Such a life-changing trip. Thank you so much for watching.